10%.
That was so anticlimactic.
Oh, there we are.
Hi, everybody. Hello, hello.
Hopefully there are people out there.
I hope so. Hi, friends.
I don't think people have tuned in just yet.
Okay. Merp, merp.
We can see
Like-
who's planning to attend this session.
Friends. Fred, I saw a weather report that OKC is supposed to have a blizzard on Sunday. I said,
Yes.
excuse me?
Yeah. Aren't you glad you moved south?
I mean, it's still supposed to snow 3 days next week and be a low of 0 on Sunday.
Yeah. So since I'm also faculty here, we got a memo earlier this week saying like this is what we're discussing about like classes and stuff for next week because we've already missed like 2.5 days of classes, and so we're gonna be doing virtual classes next week, depending if the professor wants to. So it's up to the professor if they want to do virtual from home classes. So because OU did it last week and it worked out well for them, and so we'll be doing the same.
Yeah.
So I've
If this pandemic has done one thing, it's taken away snow days.
the student group meets that I'm in, some of the students were like, wait, we don't get out of school anymore? I'm like, nope.
No, you don't.
The pandemic has proven that we can continue on with technology, even if the university cannot be physical.
Right. Yeah. Man, I thought I moved south enough I didn't have to deal with this. I straight up played myself.
Yeah, for some reason I chose to move back further north, and here we are, preparing for a blizzard in Oklahoma.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. So I still have so many friends in Oklahoma, so they're posting like the weather, screenshots of the weather app, and I'm like, ugh. My poor dog, when he goes outside, he's like, I hate this.
So luckily, I mean, having a backyard, I just open up the door and let my dog go. Sometimes he likes to piddle around back there. But like the last week, he has not. He has gone out, done his business, come right back. He's ready to come back in. He doesn't like this cold either. Yeah,
no, mine doesn't. Sometimes he gets the memo that it's too cold for us to be out there, and other times he's like, I need to be out here forever. I'm like, stop. Hi, everybody. As you're coming in, hello. We'll give a few minutes for people to come in and get situated. That's a negative 35 degrees Celsius. That's going to be a definite no for me. I have a friend who lives in Wisconsin, and she's like, oh, yeah, it's been negative for the past week. And I'm like, ooh, but why? I was like, why do you live there? I mean, if you can do it, I cannot. I moved out of the north for a reason.
It's been snowing consistently here for the last 2 days. It's just a light dusting on the ground. That's all that's sticking around, but nothing building up actually yet. So
Yeah.
I'm just super thankful that I have a house with a garage because I do not miss the days of cleaning off my car.
Yeah. I had to scrape my car yesterday, and I'm out there in my big puffy coat trying to scrape my car as best I can.
I had to do that
after. I wish I had a garage that I could park my car in, but
I had to scrape this week after I taught class on, I think, Tuesday or No, it was Tuesday. Yeah, I had to like scrape my windshield off before I could leave to go home.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up in Seattle, and when we get snow, it like shuts down the entire city because everyone's like, snow, we can drive in rain, but like snow, what is this? So when it snows, everyone's just like, well, guess I'm not going anywhere for the next week. It's great.
I am so obsessed with Seattle, and I've never been. But
It's beautiful. It's lovely. It's
it's
expensive. It's very
yeah,
lovely.
but it's because of
Gianna,
Gracie.
that's so true. Running back to the south. Yes, so true. That's so true. South, come back. Southern weather, come back. Yeah, I lived in Florida for 2 years in grad school, and I think the lowest it got down was like 17. And I was like, what? I thought this was Florida. I thought this was warm. Mm-mm. Nope. The Panhandle can get that cold. I had more snow days my first year of grad school in Florida than I did when I was in undergrad in Washington.
Yikes.
It was cold. So we'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll get started. All right. All right. That's so true, Kelsey. Hibernating with fresh groceries. Yeah, that's very true. Especially bread.
You can't forget the milk, Laura.
I mean, you're not wrong. But you can freeze the milk. If it's cold enough outside, just freeze a couple jugs outside, you'll be fine. It reconstitutes kind of. All right, are we ready?
Yeah, I'll
go ahead.
do some quick introductions for everyone. So hi everyone, my name's Ryan. I'm going to be doing some quick moderation for our two great presenters this morning. I just want to remind folks that, people have been using the chat function, so please feel free to use that, asking questions in there as the presentation's going on, and I'll be helping our presenters navigate those questions. A reminder that we will have an evaluation at the very end of this presentation, both in a slide, and then I will be posting the link in the chat as well for folks to access a little bit more. So please be very courteous to our presenters and do those evaluations as well. And then we're looking forward to some great content. So Fred, Laura, I'll let y'all take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. So welcome everyone to our presentation. So we are going over interviewing in a virtual world, how to ace your virtual interview. We want to thank you for coming to our presentation today. We're going to have some different questions for you all to answer, give you some info, do some discussion. So let's get started.
All right, everyone. Hello, my name is Fred Dillard. I use the he series pronouns. So I work at Oklahoma State University. Been here about 3.5 years. In August, we'll start year 4. And so, yeah. So I work, I oversee student leadership here. I also work with student staff selection, so I oversee that process. I also teach in the College of Education here. So over my time, I've kind of worked with several hiring processes, and it's become a passion of mine. And so working with other people and helping them get prepared for a job search is another passion of mine. And I also chair the Placement Services Committee for SWCUPA.
And I am Laura. I'm at the University of Texas at Dallas. I've been here a little over a year and a half, and I'm a residential life coordinator. I oversee regular student staff as well as professional staff, and I've helped with various interview processes from student staff to professional staff throughout my multiple years working here, as well as the University of Central Oklahoma in Edmond, Oklahoma. So we are going to get started with just some learning outcomes for you all. By attending this session, an attendee will be able to successfully navigate interviews in a virtual environment. We hope that you'll be able to effectively prepare for your virtual interview and or experiences over various virtual mediums, and then you'll be able to showcase your experience in new and innovative ways. So in order for some participation, we are going to use what's called Poll Everywhere. I figure most of you are probably on your computers and or have your phones handy. So if you will go to pollev.com/Laura Glasgow 552 or text Laura Glasgow 552 to 37607. And we have a few questions we would love for you to answer. Let me pull those up. Let me see how I do this. Come on. Oh, maybe. Oh, I lied. It's not going to let me do that. All right, so we're going to do it through the chat then. So disregard that then. Sometimes technology decides if it wants to work. Sometimes it doesn't work. All right, so some questions if you want to put your answers in the chat. When thinking about interviewing in a virtual environment, what are some things that you have reservations about? What are some things that you are a little nervous about? I can try to post it, yes. Let's see. Let's just do it in the chat. That'll be faster and easier to do because it won't let me show you. So I've gotten some answers about being nervous about tech issues, technology adding anxiety, technology issues, aka like right now. Good times. What are some other things that might be a little
maybe even think about the environment that you will be in if you're doing some interviews or that your candidates will be in. Think about what's different from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic as you're trying to formulate some of these answers.
Somebody said Wi-Fi going out, outside noise, worry about creating a personal connection with the people you're interviewing with, loss of personal connection with face-to-face. Yeah, external noise, you can't control, building and maintenance. That happened to me the other day. I was on a call with a potential student staff member, and they were like working in the elevator behind me, and there's a whole bunch of banging noise. Yeah, totally. External noises you can't control. Absolutely. Marketing yourself through the screen, not having personal interactions, getting your excitement and personality across without seeming fake. That's so true. Yeah, general tiredness of being in front of the computer. Yeah. Totally true. Not getting to see the campus environment, that's a really big one. Yeah, because I don't know about y'all, but when I walk onto a campus for a campus interview, like you can feel the campus, like you can feel the environment, and you don't get that from an interview over a screen. Yeah, totally. Yeah. All right, the next question should pop up. if you're using the poll everywhere, and it's how do you feel interviewing in a virtual setting is different than in person? I'll put it in the chat as well. How do you feel interviewing in a virtual setting is different than in person? You can use that same poll everywhere link or the text message as well. Yeah, so Ryan said more accessible, less personal. Anybody else? Harder to read emotions and body language. Yeah. Very true. Very, very true. Yeah. Less stressful in some ways. You can use your own space. Yeah. In a normal, someone said on Pull Everywhere, in a normal interview, you have to feel the room, but in a virtual meeting, lost it. In a virtual setting, you really have to take time to feel the room, especially if your video is off or there are technology issues. Very true. Definitely, you don't get the same interaction. They don't have a firm handshake. No, they don't look you in the eye. Where do you look in a Zoom meeting? We'll talk about that. Very true. Yeah, can feel more difficult, or can be more difficult to feel their reactions. Yeah, totally. We've been in the middle of student staff selection, and even the most simple of like knowing when they're ready to ask you the next question, I've noticed it's very hard because if I'm typing or if I'm writing from here, you can't see my hands. So it's been really hard for students to gauge, like, do I keep answering the question? Do I stop? So that's another one. It's very hard to like know when to do things, like where are you in the conversation? Yeah.
And if you are an interviewer, I would like give a pro tip that to preface that at the beginning of your interview that the pauses between the questions are okay after you finish answering, that you are writing or typing your answer so that the candidate doesn't think that they have to continuously answer the question while waiting for you to answer the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot easier in person to see that someone's actually writing versus virtually. All right, so we will move on to our next slide.
All right, that's me. So one of the first places you want to start with is having a professional email address with your name. I would highly recommend that you are not using your current institution email address. If you want to, that's great, but remember at some point that email is going to get shut off. It may be 30 days, it may be 60 days, it may be 90 days, but at some point you're going to lose access to that email, and you're going to lose access to all the communications that you had over the past during your job search year. And so make sure that you set up a different one. I know Gmail is pretty much a standard at this point, but you can use Gmail, Yahoo, whatever you're most comfortable with. Also, include your name in the email address so that as employers and interviewers, we know who this is coming from without even opening it instantly. It helps us prioritize when we see messages in our inbox, like, oh, that's one of the people that I'm interviewing. I need to make sure that I open that rather quickly. And also, like, make sure that it's using your name helps prevent having inappropriate things that are in your email. Titles such as prettyandpink@hotmail.com. I mean, great, maybe you do look pretty and pink. That's awesome. But we want to be a professional and use your name. Also use a professional picture for your email using your LinkedIn. So like, some emails allow you to add a picture instead of it just having your initials. Also, Zoom has the feature where you can add a picture if you ever mute your camera. And also on LinkedIn, so make sure you have a professional picture. If you have someone at your university that can do professional pictures, great. If not, get dressed up, have a friend that's really good with the iPhone, take the picture, and it'll work just as well. So, but you want to make sure that you are using professional pictures in your backgrounds and things like that. Again, using a separate email so that you don't, so things don't get lost after you leave your current institution, whether that's because of graduation or getting a new job. And then lastly, I always tell people to Google yourself. You never know what's going to be out there about you. What is the first thing that pops up? As an employer, I always tell employers that they should never be Googling their candidates or Facebook stalking their candidates, because that is outside the realm of what they should be using for when they are looking to hire someone. However, people still do it. So you still want to take as much protection against yourself as you can. So Google yourself, see what's out there, see if you need to change any of your privacy settings on social media. Oftentimes, if you just go in and type your name, you can see the access to your social media accounts, and you can go change that with the privacy settings on your whatever social media you have. So I highly encourage that everyone take a little bit, Google yourself, and see what you can change about what's on there if you don't like it.
Totally. Yeah, I Googled myself this morning and I was like, ooh, my LinkedIn came up. Yeah, I used to have a professor say you should always do research because you want that to be the first thing to pop up on Google when someone Googles you. Fun fact. All right, so these are kind of generic, but things that traditionally we wouldn't have to think about. But when you're getting ready for your interview, make sure that you're picking a neutral background for your interview. Some people like to do the blurred background, which is fine. Some people will do just a random wall, like this one is a nice green one. So it depends on what you want to use, what you're most comfortable with, but understand that it needs to not be too flashy. Blank walls, or when I was doing some research for this, they were saying to do like the corner of a room. So it gives some visual interest, but still have blank walls because it's still neutral enough. You want to make sure that the person who is interviewing you has a chance to focus on you and not the things behind you. I've interviewed people where like I saw something behind them. I'm like, I wonder what that is. And then I'm like, oh wait, no, I'm doing something. I'm interviewing them. So making sure that you are providing less distraction for the person interviewing you, especially if they're interviewing probably interviewing multiple people. Sometimes minds wander, so just understand that. Wear a complete outfit. So sorry, I keep getting messages for other things. Make sure that you're wearing a nice blouse, shirt, as well as slacks or a skirt, depending on what you feel most comfortable in. We know that research tells us if you wear a complete outfit, it gets you into the mindset of interviewing. We also, when Fred and I were putting this together, he brought up a good idea that if you are not in a place to be able to purchase different things for professional outfits, and we know that especially for students, like this could be an issue. Different universities have potentially career closets with clothes that anyone on campus can utilize, resources like that. So if you do not have clothes that are seen as professional for interviews, talk to those around you, see if there's any resources, even if it's just wearing a white shirt and black pants, whether it's the nicer fabrics. On camera, it shows as just a white shirt and black pants. But wearing that nicer clothes can sometimes help you get in the mindset of that interview. And then learn the technology in advance. So make sure that you download whatever the program is to your computer, and then make sure that your microphone and camera are working. If you need to test it out with friends, family, colleagues, to make sure it's working, please do that. We also suggest having a backup device if needed. That could be if you usually use your laptop, if you have an iPad, or your phone. Try to have something that you can use instead in case there is an issue. And one person brought up in the chat, looking like, where do you look? So I don't know about you, but I watch myself when I'm talking, but on here, like my face is here, but my camera is all the way up here. So if I actually look at the camera, I'm actually talking to you. So be sure to do that. Same in presentations, but in interviews, it feels more personal if you're talking to the camera versus talking to yourself or to the person on the screen. So, yeah. And then these were just some background options that I found. What are some other background options that you have seen? Anything interesting that you've seen? If you've been doing any interviews recently, drop it in the chat. Any other ideas or any interesting backgrounds you've seen? No?
All right, so feel free to still drop those in the chat if you want. But we're going to talk a little bit about what happens during the interview. So first, you want to be honest about your possible distractions with your future potential employers. So, like for example, if you have a dog, I have a pet. A lot of other people have pets, and so if that animal makes noises, what happens? And so, just letting your potential employer know, like, hey, my dog is in another room. He or she may bark. The animal is okay. Just ignore it and let's keep rolling. And that's okay to do. Also, if you have a child or children, you can also share that information with your employers to say, like, hey, I'm trying to moderate my child that is doing virtual classes at their elementary school right here, and so they may need help or assistance or may ask me a question during our interview. I'm saying that with a caveat as well, so share if you are comfortable, because we all know that bias exists when it comes to interviews. And so if you are comfortable sharing that you have a child or children, go ahead and share that. But if you are not, that's okay too. Just know that, like, if they hear another voice in the background, they may get concerned as to why someone else is in the space. So just being mindful about that. Additionally, limit virtual distractions as possible. So we know, like, we have our phone next to our sites, we have other alerts going off. As Laura mentioned earlier, she kept receiving chats while she was talking. I kept receiving emails and stuff as well. So, like, an easy thing to do is close that stuff out. Oftentimes you can mute chats on different platforms and things like that, and so that it's not distracting to you. So you want to be sure to only have open your Zoom, your Microsoft Teams, or whatever you're using for that, and have everything else muted. Have your phone muted. I am a big fan of Do Not Disturb. I love it. I use it quite a bit. So do whatever you need to limit all your virtual distractions. Additionally, you want to set yourself apart from your current institution. So, for example, I'm currently in my office, OSU, our colors are orange and black. I probably wouldn't want to do my interview here in my office because here's a huge orange wall. So they know that I'm at Oklahoma State by being on my resume, but then, like, I'm still kind of showing my Oklahoma State pride by having an orange wall. So it works better to have maybe a blank space or a neutral color that's set apart. Also, you don't want to have like a big logo in your background that says your current institution. If you are using a background filter, you don't want to have like your institution's filter or your departmental filter. Again, you want to be set apart as an available candidate for them to hire. And then lastly, you want to be able to answer questions about your role during the COVID crisis response. So, what does that look like for you? What did you do? Sit down and actually write some of this out, like kind of think through. I know like there's a lot that's happened within the last 11 months for a lot of us. And, some of our roles changed significantly. Sometimes we did things that were grossly outside of our role, and that's okay. Just write it down. Try to make sure you have your thoughts together when it comes to how you helped your department and your university respond to the global pandemic of the coronavirus.
Yeah. Yep. And just a note on the being honest about possible distractions. That kind of goes along the lines with setting up your background as well, your virtual background. In some of the articles I was reading, it was talking about making sure that you don't have anything that can cause bias. So whether that be you like this versus this one thing versus this other thing, or you have children, or whatever that looks like, having something that gives a very neutral sense of who you are, because you're in a virtual world versus like you wouldn't take like your whole living room's worth of stuff or your whole office worth of stuff to an interview, but now you do, being mindful of what's behind you and what could potentially cause bias from your interviewer. We obviously hope that that doesn't happen, but we understand that it does at times.
And I want to jump back in here because there have been some great things in the chat that I was just reading. Drew mentioned that he's seen some candidates use the school logo that they are applying to as the background. I'm on the same wavelength of Drew. I probably would not care for that as a potential employer, but whatever you feel most comfortable with. Again, I would say stick to a neutral background, stick to not having a filter up, but just be you in that space. Again, Tiana also mentioned closing out all other applications on whatever device that you're using. Melissa brought up using headphones. I think that's a great option. So because headphones will let you come through clearer and louder, and you'll be able to hear your interviewers better.
Mm-hmm. I was watching a YouTube video the other day of a freshman student going through recruitment. I went down a rabbit hole. But she was saying that when they, like with the recruitment packet that she got, because everything was virtual, they were suggesting that she get a whole lighting package in order to make her look her best. You don't have to do that, but I thought it was a very interesting idea. Melissa also said making sure the lighting is coming from in front of you versus behind you. And I thought that was very interesting. If you're one of those people that has a ring light, maybe that's something you set behind your computer so you have better light on you. You don't have to, but if I was going to interview in my living room is very dark, so it might be nice to have some extra light. So that may be something you want to look into as well. So, so when we talk about the COVID experience, obviously all of us have had some experience with COVID and being a professional or being a grad student or just being a human. So, looking at, like Fred referenced, looking at your experience and really being able to tailor it to you specifically will really help set you apart in your interviews. Oh, I didn't know that, Tiana. That's good to know. You can play with the settings of lighting on Zoom. Good to know. Yeah, so when you're thinking about your individual, the way that you will answer questions when it comes to your COVID experience, some things that Fred and I talked about that we felt would be good to at least think about were, how did you adjust to working at home? Most people probably had to, in a span of like 3 days, figure out how to go from sitting in an office 40 hours a week to sitting at their kitchen table, sitting at their home office, sitting wherever, standing wherever in their apartment or house, and possibly sharing that with other people, and how did they make that adjustment? So be thinking about what that what you actually did, because I think that's very telling. Like when we look at adaptability, I think that's probably going to be the biggest one, and we've all done it in very different ways. And then what you need to be successful working remotely is that 2 screens, is that having an extra keyboard, is that like what do you need to be successful? I currently sit at my kitchen table when I'm at home, and I kind of have my own little setup that I built myself, but are there things that an institution may be able to help provide you beyond just a laptop? What else can they provide to make that space more successful, or a nicer place for you to work if you're going to be working from home majority of the time? How does residential life's traditional way of handling situations change due to COVID? So when we address a potential alcohol violation, how has that changed? How has your institution changed? How have you as a professional changed the way that you address mental health situations with students? We understand that this is a unprecedented time, as everyone has said, and it is. And how have things changed? How has your mentality changed when it comes to handling certain situations? We have to take into account not only how our students are doing, but how we are doing as well. And then lastly, how do you use this time to build yourself professionally? Be thinking about, what conferences have you gone to? If you haven't done anything, that's perfectly fine as well. Again, with this being an unprecedented time, thriving is the goal, surviving is fine. So, but what can you do to help build yourself professionally through this time? I have coworkers who spent probably the first month and a half of quarantine watching documentaries, watching webinars, TED Talks, reading books, literally everything and anything they could do to help build themselves professionally, since that was something that we had the time to do for the first time in, I don't know, a long time, because we just didn't know what was going on. So they utilized that time to really build themselves up professionally. Fred, do you have anything else on those things?
Yeah, I think especially building yourself up professionally, I think decide how you want to invest in yourself. I don't know if any institutions are doing any professional development funding this year. Most of them are not, because they're trying to keep people employed. And so the professional development is really on you now. And a lot of conferences have moved to free or as close to free as possible. So can you take personal funds and register for some of these conferences or webinars and things like that? For example, in December, I attended the LEI, so Leadership Educators Institute, and it was a relatively low price, but for me that was an investment in myself. So what can you do to invest in yourself? And there are plenty of things to do if you cannot afford to do anything at all that you have to pay for additionally. That's okay. There's plenty of webinars that are free. There are plenty of articles out there. There's just plenty of things that you can look at and books to read that you can access for free. But take this time to actually rethink about how you can invest in yourself, and rethink about where you want to go professionally, and use this time to kind of help set you up on that path. Because I know sometimes we get in the cycle of okay, well, it's SWACUHO time. I always go to SWACUHO, so I'm going. But are you actually getting something out of SWACUHO by going? Maybe housing is not your path anymore, and maybe you're going to transition out to somewhere else. So start looking at other places where you can get some of that development that will lead you to that next position that you're looking for.
And I think it's also interesting to look at, if you look at higher ed jobs, look at how many more positions are now remote or virtual. That's just how they're going to be forever. So I think looking at, specifically looking at how you've adjusted to working at home and what makes you successful working at home. If you're starting to look at those positions that are going to be remote for a long time and or forever, How can you articulate that to the interviewer that, yeah, I'm self-sufficient, I can work on my own. This is what I did to transition to working at home, and working more independently. Because I've read a bunch of articles that big Fortune 500 companies have now realized that they can shut down their physical offices and completely do everything remotely. So they're saving all this money on not having to rent space or own land. So, if this is really where we're going to go in the future, how are you able to articulate what that looks like for you?
So after the interview, everyone typically knows the either leave thank you cards, mail thank you cards after you're on campus. But on campuses are most likely not going to happen at this point. But make sure I still highly encourage that you do virtual thank you cards. Actually be creative and don't just send like a 1 or 2 line email saying thank you for your interview. I really enjoyed learning about XYZ. Be a little bit more intentional on that. And so there's plenty of platforms out there, such as Canva. Canva is a free platform. You can design flyers, advertisement, other things like that, and also thank you cards. There's a lot of templates out there that you can do. It takes a hot second to do, and just send it to your potential employer. Again, also email, do a follow-up emails as needed, things like that. And last but certainly not least, please be patient. Processes are taking a little bit longer, especially since we're having to spend more time like in front of our computers, on cameras with candidates and things like that. While yes, we're not parading you around campus anymore, we are spending a lot of other times on the screen and also having to do the rest of our jobs as well. So just be patient. Again, you can always email whoever you've been contacted and ask what your status is or where they are at in the process. It's always good to end your interview with what is the next step in this process, so that you know. But you can always send that email. But again, be patient, and most likely you will hear something either way. Sorry, I was muted. And so, we're going to plug our placement committee here. So, SWCUHA has a placement services committee, and we do all sorts of things, such as interview consultations. So, if you want to do a mock interview or talk about how an interview went, you can always email us and contact us, and we will set you up with someone, either myself, Laura, or someone else on the committee. We also do resume reviews, so we're doing one today at 2 o'clock from 2 to 3 in the placement lounge today, and also February 26th. So both part of the SWCUHA conference. And then there's also SWCUHA Google groups, and you can go to swcuha.org to join any of our groups as well, so that you can get notifications. The one I would highly recommend you joining is the SWCUHA Nation. That's the general emails that go out. We oftentimes send job placement notifications via that email. So if there's a job opening at UT Dallas, that's the email I'm going to send it out to, and say, hey, we have a residence life coordinator open at UT Dallas. You should work here. If you have positions that you want to post, you can just email them over to me, and I'll be happy to post them for you. But we do a lot of things, and we just, in general, we offer advice as well. If you want to talk to someone who is not in your process, someone who really doesn't work with you or know you super well, we can be an outside person that can offer you any advice and tips that you may need during your job search.
Fun fact, UTD is hiring an assistant residential life coordinator. Thanks for that plug. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Also, if any of this sounds interesting to you, you should join our committee. Sorry, our flyer is a little bit small on here, but you can just scan that QR code, and it will take you to a Google form and fill out the information that will go to our technology coordinator for SWCUHA, and he will send that on to me. So if you like job placement, you like reviewing resumes, you like to talk to people about job placement services, we're the group that you can come to. Or you can just, if you have any questions or anything else that you need, you can just email myself at fred.dillard@okstate.edu, and I can drop that in the chat as well. But yeah, hopefully we would love to see some of you join our committee for our next academic year.
All right, so that's pretty much everything we have. What questions or discussion do you all have? What are some things that we didn't quite answer that you may have questions about? If you've interviewed during this COVID season, what are some things that you noticed, or what was helpful for you? Drop it in the chat. That's a nice bike picture. Okay,
That's so random. But if you want to check out the homepage of the university, go for it.
Yep. Any questions, comments, concerns, life stories? Could be about anything.
Did we just do such an awesome job that you have no questions? Pat myself on the back here.
Well, while we're waiting for that, I will pull up the program evaluation slide. Yes, Ryan. Yes.
That is so
I don't know about y'all, but I used to go on websites and I would like stalk who was on there to make sure I got their name right. That's so true.
Right,
Except if
yeah.
they put if they're under guest.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure your name is up there.
Yeah. Or some universities don't publicize their directories, and you have to log in and you can't see it, and you're just like, well, I'm sorry, you're just not getting a thank you, unfortunately.
Yep.
Also, Ryan dropped the program evaluation in the chat if you need to access it there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jody.
You're so welcome, Jody.
Please let us know how it goes.
Yeah. And feel free to peruse, like Fred said, peruse any job postings for the region. It's nice to finally be able to restart interviewing and getting new people on campuses. So, like I said, UT Dallas, we're hiring an assistant residential life coordinator. If you're interested, let me know. I'll drop my email in as well.
Awesome. I want to give a quick thank you to Fred and Laura. I know we'll be hanging around a little bit later because we're here through the rest of Laura, that big old UTD that just went into the chat.
I saw that.
I love using those opportunities because yes, we are hiring. But I want to give a big thank you to Fred and Laura for taking this last 45 minutes, an hour, to talk to us about some great tips for the interview process, especially in this virtual format that we're in for X amount of time right now. Like we've been mentioning, please make sure to do that evaluation that is both linked in there as well as a QR code on the page right now. And we look forward to y'all joining into all the other sessions that are happening, whether it be today or for the next 2 weeks as well throughout the rest of February. Please make sure to be checking out the website for all those great sessions that are coming up. And we look forward to seeing you there.
If there are any questions, just drop them in the chat. Fred and I will hang out for a little bit longer. And then it's lunchtime. Yeah. Favorite time of the day.
I'm so excited. I do intermittent fasting and stuff. Noon is when I can start eating.
That's a life I don't live, but good on you. I'm going to go to my apartment, eat my leftovers, and cuddle with my dog.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. You have a backyard, so here we are.
Okay, you're not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I think I'm gonna brave the cold and go over to the Union and grab spaghetti.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. The only dining location I've been at OSU is that bougie restaurant where like the hospitality students practice.
Oh yeah, Taylor's. I love Taylor's.
So bougie, but so delicious.
It is. I eat there at least once a week.
I'm jealous. Jealous. Oh, next time I come visit, I'll go hang out. I'll go eat at Taylor's.
You are welcome anytime.
Blessed. Blessings.
I have 2 extra bedrooms, so.
Sounds good. I'll cuddle with your dog.
Oh, he will love that.
Oh, I will love that. If y'all need anything or if you have any questions, or like Fred said, if you need any help with mock interviews or want someone to look over your resume, today from 2 to 3 is the program or the placement room for this session this week from 2 to 3. Pop in the room. There'll be a few of us there. Or you can email Fred or myself and we will answer any questions, see how we can help. So many of my students have walked by and they're like, I have like windows right in front of me. One of them is currently stretching in front of, right next to the desk.
Yeah, I have a big window that looks out into the rest of my office, and so people like to stand outside of it and press their face up against it. I'm like, go away.
I'm busy. Ryan, if you're still listening, Drew is standing outside of my office.
Oh, Drew.
Oh, Drew.